who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publisher. For more information, just visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. And welcome to you, our Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We now present a reading of articles and features from the USA Today for Tuesday, March the 31st of 2026. And your readers today are Jody
and Alan Blackburn.
And I'm going to start you out on my front page. We're going to talk about the dry west begins to restrict water use. Climatologists are warning of dangerous drought. Stretching out in their beach chairs as the temps climb toward 70 degrees, Seth and Renee McLaughlin watched their three kids play in the sand on what was supposed to be a family's ski trip. They booked it last November, their spring break vacay, to Colorado's mountains, and it required a hard shift in plans following a historically warm and dry winter. Instead of zipping down the slopes, the couple watched their kids play with sand in toy buckets on the shores of Lake Dillon. It's obviously frustrating. You want to go skiing, and we do usually ski until May. But instead, we're at the beach, they said. I feel bad for folks who spend tens of thousands of dollars to come here on vacation. The McLaughlins' ruined vacation. It's a harbinger of what climatologists say will be a dangerously dry summer across the West. In many areas, all-important snowfall has been half of normal, with even hotter, drier temps expected in the coming months. Much of the nation is in a drought already, but the headwaters of the Colorado River are among the driest places, also along with Texas and all of Florida. Alarmed civic officials across the West have already begun ordering restrictions on watering lawns, cleaning your cars, and even whether restaurant patrons can get served glasses of water. For more than 2 decades, Udall has been studying how climate change is altering the West's water resources. He said that in 2026, it may go down as the worst year for Colorado River flows in recorded history. Climate experts have long warned that climate change will make the West hotter and drier, and worry that what's happening now represents a long-term shift that could reshape how people live and work in Arizona, Colorado, Nevada, Utah, New Mexico, and Wyoming. Some water experts say Lake Powell could hit its lowest level even later this summer. Water restrictions and concerns are in Colorado, Utah, and Wyoming. At Lake Powell, which straddles the Arizona-Utah line, workers are prepping to move the entire floating Bullfrog Marina across the shrinking lake to the Halls Crossing area, where the water will stay deeper longer. Water managers are warning that Lake Powell's water levels this year could drop to the lowest recorded level since the lake was filling in the 1960s. Lake Powell is filled by Colorado River and uses its water to generate hydroelectricity for about 500,000 houses. But if the Colorado River flows this year are as low as projected, the lake level could by this fall drop below what's known as power pool, or the minimum level that's necessary to spin the turbines. Now, Salt Lake City officials prepping for this drought have temporarily banned the opening of any large non-residential developments that consume significant amounts of water. In Denver, residents have been told to hold off watering their lawns until late May, even though the temps have repeatedly been in the 80s already across the city. In the northern Colorado city of Erie, officials warned residents and businesses to halt any irrigation until early April, and they warned that they could shut off water access to anyone who's caught wasting water on their lawns. Then, in Wyoming, state officials have already told some water users to cut back to preserve supplies for the coming summer. And federal officials are expected to draw down one of the state's largest reservoirs, that's called Flaming Gorge, to put water into Lake Powell during the hot summer months. State engineer Brendan Gebhardt, he warned that some communities to prepare for not having adequate drinking water supplies in our coming months.
For some, the war can't end quickly enough. It's been a month since the United States and Israel jointly began the Iran war, and Brenna Boyd believes the president's repeated promises to end it have fallen flat. Brenda is one of a trio of Americans of different political affiliations whom USA Today asked about their lives, how they've changed since the onset of the conflict. All three largely believe the war has caused high gas and grocery prices that are crippling the nation's economy. Their views align with the majority of Americans queried in a recent poll. I don't think it'll ever be over, said Boyd, a declared independent voter who works as an administrator in Darlington Township, Pennsylvania. I'm not inclined to believe there's a permanent resolution. The end can't come soon enough for Justin Thamart, a registered Republican from central Minnesota, who voted for President Donald Trump. But it's become doubtful the president will deliver on his promise of a quick turnaround. I'll believe it when I see it, Thamart said. The mechanic bays at Thamart's auto repair shop are idle and may remain that way for a while. There are fewer cars and pickups to work on. Business was down 60% this winter. Compared to when people barely left their homes during the pandemic, business was slow and got even slower when gas prices rose. Other nearby businesses, including a nearby car dealership, are seeing a decline in foot traffic. Everyone's kind of tightening their belts, said Thamart, who's 35 years old, who started a five-star auto repair as an employee 15 years ago and became a co-owner about a decade ago. Folks are putting off repairs and doing other things just to make things ends meet. Everything's at a standstill. But he's spending more out of pocket than he can recall and doesn't know what to make of Trump. It's disappointing. It's hard for me to tell what the truth is now. Everyone wants to spin their own narrative about what's going on. Thamart, who is raising a teenage daughter in a nearby town of 4,000, he said he's also feeling a financial pinch firsthand. He's seen gas prices rise near $4 a gallon. He's already seen his grocery bill spike by an extra $300 a month, and his utility bill could climb again, as his provider proposes an 8.7% increase in monthly natural gas costs, roughly $7 more per bill. Thamart already pays at least $20 more a month because of rate hikes last year. In the moment Martin Allison heard about airstrikes in Iran, several thoughts raced through his mind. Are we going to war? How many lives might be lost? How long will it last? And how fast will gas prices and will everything else go up? It's all happening so fast, said Allison, who's 33 years old, of Torrance, California, and had to stop and take a breath. He's a registered Democrat and remembers what happened when gas and food prices jumped in Southern California after Russia invaded Ukraine 4 years ago. This will definitely test our resilience yet again, Allison said. Nobody's really spared this time around. But he tried to keep up with the war's developments. Allison said he's unsure why the United States entered into a battle with Iran. He only knows only that Trump told Americans the war wouldn't last long. They would have to endure some short-term pain. Is it all about an agenda or protecting the people? He said. I don't feel like we've even been given straight answers from this government. With gas climbing to $7 a gallon and higher across Los Angeles, Allison said this war is having a trickle-down effect. He's been scouring the area to find the cheapest gas while juggling two jobs as a youth counselor and as a private fitness trainer. Boyd, a mother of three in a tiny Pittsburgh suburb, isn't angry at Trump into the war. I'm more annoyed with him, said Boyd, who's 42. I'm very annoyed about the way he went about doing it. This felt kind of impulsive and very irresponsible. And now many, many lives are being affected by that decision. Instead of venting her frustration, Boyd said, we have chosen to channel our energy towards safety of service members who are risking their lives. My husband says we can't control this, but we think about the people who are fighting the conflict, their families, how that impacts not just us, but other Americans in the world.
And hospitals sue patients over unpaid bills. Virginia medical providers file over 1 million lawsuits. A few months ago, after Waynesboro, Virginia resident Kenise Marshall delivered a boy on New Year's Day of 23, the hospital bills they rolled in. Marshall's insurance had paid Martha Jefferson Hospital more than $24,000, and she set up a payment plan for the balance. She thought she paid the full amount billed by the Charlottesville, Virginia hospital until a process server showed up in her home in November of 25. Nearly 3 years later, Martha Jefferson Hospital, owned by Centera Health, was suing Marshall for $2,366 in unpaid bills she didn't even know existed. The nonprofit Centera Health initiated more than 96,000 lawsuits in Virginia from the year 2010 to 2024, routinely suing patients who have struggled to pay their bills, according to a research report. Hospital billing experts say aggressive medical debt collection tactics can soon turn to financial ruin for many families. This is an affordability crisis. Now, while Congress has battled over the expiration of the Affordable Care Act's enhanced subsidies that made health insurance more affordable for millions of Americans, elected officials have focused much less attention on the 100 million Americans who do carry medical debt. Patient right advocate researchers said the problem is exacerbated by the combination of expensive and often undisclosed prices that are charged by hospitals and other medical providers. They get ensnared into a legal system that charges them court fees, charges them interest, and makes them afraid of even going to a hospital. This is an affordability crisis. The affordability crisis is I get unwittingly ensnared into this state-sponsored extraction system that I can't get out of. Pledges to halt patient lawsuits. Several hospital chains have been scrutinized for their billing practices and willingness to sue patients for uncollected debt. While Sentara filed the most medical debt lawsuits in Virginia over the past 15 years, other hospitals followed closely. VCU Health ranks second in the state with 92,700 lawsuits, followed by Inova Health, UVA Health, and Mary Washington Healthcare. Now, 3 of those hospital systems in Virginia, that's VCU Health, UVA Health, and Mary Washington, previously pledged to stop suing patients or erase liens on homes following news reports about this debt collection lawsuits. Nonprofit hospitals, they sue the most. Nonprofit hospitals pursued the most medical debt lawsuits and wage and bank account garnishments in Virginia. Nonprofit hospitals and hospitals' own medical practices filed more than 802,000 lawsuits or garnishments in Virginia courts over 15 years. But nonprofit hospitals, they get a tax break that is worth billions, but they must meet community benefit standards in exchange for this favorable tax status. Predatory pricing. Now, Charlottesville resident Latricia Giles is among the thousands of Virginia residents who have been sued by Sentara. A nonprofit suing a member of the community is crazy when you think about it. She was billed nearly $68,000 for multiple visits to Martha Jefferson Hospital from January to March of 23. Her insurance plan discounted the bill and paid nearly $26,000, but the hospital then sought more money from Giles. She made some payments, but then in 24, the hospital sued Giles for an unpaid balance of more than $10,200. Giles said being sued, it changes the way I think about care, she said. There are nights I've been in the house just vomiting. I don't want to go to the hospital. I can't afford to go to the doctor. I can't afford to keep putting my family through this. She has been back to Martha Jefferson Hospital since the lawsuit, though, and she knows she might face future financial repercussions. Call it what it is. It's predatory pricing on everyday average American citizens, Giles says. Now, the billing practices are questioned. While Giles fended off her case in court, Marshall still faces a legal battle over her medical debt. She's scheduled to appear June 17th in the Albemarle General District Court in Charlottesville. After her son was born, doctors transferred the newborn to a specialty nursery within the hospital because during birth he had swallowed meconium, that's amniotic and other fluids, and then he needed his lungs cleaned. He spent 9 days in what the hospital described as a level 3 specialty care before he went home. Then Marshall also had her own health scare during and after the C-section. She had hemorrhage during it and transferred to postpartum and then was released. But she still didn't feel well. So during a return trip to the hospital to see her son in the specialty unit, she was out of breath and was struggling to walk. A nurse noticed and then guided her to the emergency room, where she was then diagnosed and treated for heart failure. Now, she doesn't challenge the quality of the care that she received while hospitalized. She chose that hospital because she has such a good experience with her daughter. But now she is angered by the nonprofit hospital's billing practices and pricing. I'm more than happy to pay my bills if they're assessed fairly and if I'm given some transparency, Marshall said.
You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 12:13. Virginia voters may hold the key to Congress. Redistricting proposal could aid the Democrats. Virginia voters will soon step into the center of the national redistricting battles in a special election bound to influence which party controls Congress for the final 2 years of President Donald Trump's second term. The state will vote on April 21st on a referendum that it could allow the state's Democrat-led legislature to temporarily redraw its congressional districts ahead of the 2026 midterm elections. The proposed map could help Democrats flip 4 seats in the U.S. House of Representatives come November. The election is the latest in an unusual mid-decade campaign among Democrats and Republicans to redraw congressional boundaries and tip the scales in the midterms in their favor. The back and forth began last summer after Texas Republicans, at Trump's urging, proposed a new election map designed to flip Democrat-held seats. A flurry of leaders in Democrat-run states quickly responded with their own redistricting pledges, including in California, where voters approved a constitutional amendment allowing the state to redraw its maps. Democrats in Virginia hope for a similar outcome, despite more difficult odds. Once considered a swing state, Virginia has been known for more moderate Democratic politics. Democratic groups have spent big on the race. Television ads and mailers blanketing the state over the last few weeks have featured a message from former President Obama telling voters, "We are counting on you." The ballot question asked voters whether Virginia's constitution should be temporarily amended to allow the legislature to adopt a new mid-decade election map for upcoming races. Come 2030, the measure says Virginia would return to a standard bipartisan redistricting process. Voters, however, might not have the final say on the redistricting proposal. The state's Supreme Court is poised to hear final arguments in a case on the legality of the amendment after the election. If the amendment passes, the court could decide to invalidate the results based on the state's constitution. Early voting for Virginia's redistricting referendum began March 6th. Election day is Tuesday, April 21st. Scarce polling is available on the election, which makes the outcome difficult to predict. A Roanoke College poll February 9th through 16th found Virginia voters disapproved of the redistricting, 52% to 44%. A survey from Christopher Newport University published in January found Virginians supported the mid-district, 51 to 43%. Early voting numbers as of March 26th appear to favor Republicans. More early ballots have been cast in Republican-leaning districts, where voters may be more inclined to vote against the redistricting measure, according to data compiled by the Virginia Public Access Project. 5 states have redrawn their congressional districts since Trump first urged Texas lawmakers to redo their electoral map in July. In Texas, Governor Greg Abbott signed a law in August 2025 aimed at flipping 5 of the state's U.S. seats red in the 2026 midterm election. In California, Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom proposed an amendment to California's constitution to allow for redistricting, and the voters approved it in November, and the state created 5 Democratic-leaning districts, essentially negating Texas's move. In Missouri, the Republican-controlled legislature approved a new map that is likely to net GOP one additional seat in Congress, though Democrats in the state seek to challenge that measure. In North Carolina, the GOP-dominated legislature approved a redistricting plan with 1 more Republican-leaning district. In Ohio, Republicans held 10 of Buckeye State's 15 congressional seats. In October, the State Redistricting Commission unanimously approved a new map, increasing the number of Republican-leaning seats to 12. 3 other states, Maryland, South Carolina, and Washington, are considering redistricting plans.
And now Trump threatens to strike Iran's desalination plants, yet the president cites progress in the talks. President Donald Trump on March 30th said the U.S. was engaged in serious discussions with Iranian officials on a deal to end the war, but threatened to launch strikes on the country's power, oil, and water facilities if these negotiations fail. Great progress has been made, Trump said on Truth Social. However, he continued, if a deal is not reached shortly and the Strait of Hormuz remains effectively closed, the U.S. will conclude our lovely stay in Iran by blowing up and completely obliterating all of their electric generating plants, their oil wells, and Karg Island, which and possibly all the desalination plants, which we have purposely not yet touched. More than a month into the war, Iran has maintained its grip on the critical trade route, raising energy prices globally. The president told reporters on March 29th that Iran had responded favorably to 15 points that the U.S. proposed to end the war, but Trump hasn't detailed these demands, an indication that Tehran is moving forward towards a peace agreement. Trump cited Iran's decision to allow 10 oil tankers through the strait. Washington and Tehran have continued to send conflicting messages about the talks to end the war. Iranian officials say they have not had any direct negotiations with the U.S. Trump also has said, but there has been a regime change in Iran. Secretary of State Marco Rubio appeared to contradict Trump on both points on March 30th. He told Good Morning America that it would be good news for the Iranians in America if there are new people in charge who have a more reasonable vision of the future. But we also have to be prepared for the possibility, maybe even the probability, that that will not be the case, Rubio has said. Iran has stepped up its strikes on Israel and its neighbors across the Middle East over the weekend. Thousands of additional U.S. troops arrived in the region. Thousands have been killed across Iran and Lebanon, where Israel recently vowed to expand its ongoing ground invasion. Pushback to the hostilities, it came from a NATO ally. Spain's defense minister on March 30th announced his country had closed its airspace to U.S. aircraft involved in these attacks on Iran, a move that is likely to escalate tensions between Madrid and Washington. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has been one of the most vocal opponents of the U.S. and Israeli attacks on Iran, describing them as reckless and illegal. Now, the price of oil jumped after Trump made that Truth Social threat. Brent crude futures were above 114 a barrel. Now that's up about 2%. Although gas prices, which take a few days to catch up, they were lower. Gas Buddy's nationwide tracker, it showed an average cost of $3.951 per gallon. Now that's down nearly 3 cents from the week before. Many investors, though, remain concerned. Don Riesmiller, chief economist for Strategas, summarized his feeling in a note on March 30th. The hit to real income due to inflation spiking near term looks substantial, he said. Longer term interest rates are rising. That combination of higher rates and oil should slow economic growth as we move through 2026. If there is not significant progress toward normalization in the Strait of Hormuz over the next week, we will raise our U.S. recession odds in 2026 from 25% to 35%.
The White House ballroom hides a military complex. Amid a court fight, Trump unveils drawings. President Donald Trump says an important part of the $400 million ballroom he's building for the White House is a massive military complex underneath it that was supposed to remain secret. Trump's explanation came as he unveiled architectural drawings of the 90,000 square foot ballroom, which critics says is out of scale to the rest of the building. The National Trust for Historic Preservation is fighting for the ballroom in federal court, which is where details about the military aspect of the project were revealed. Now the military is building a big complex under the ballroom, which has come out recently because of a stupid lawsuit that was filed, said Trump. But the military is building a massive complex under the ballroom, and that's under construction, and we're doing very well. A bunker was installed beneath the East Wing during President Franklin Delano Roosevelt's administration to protect the chief executive. The Presidential Emergency Operations Center was created and updated over the years to protect the president from attacks, including a potential nuclear war. Trump has bulldozed the East Wing, which was built in 1902 during President Theodore Roosevelt's administration and expanded in 1942 during Franklin Roosevelt's term. Trump argued the White House has needed a ballroom for 150 years because the largest room, the East Room, holds only 125 people for formal dinners. Larger events were held in tents on the South Lawn, where Trump said soggy ground often let foreign leaders with wet feet. Trump has promoted the new ballroom, which is being privately funded for seating 1,000 people. He showed drawings to reporters of the ballroom, flanked by Corinthian columns and featuring bulletproof and drone-proof windows. I think it'll be the finest ballroom of its kind anywhere in the world, Trump said. The National Trust for Historic Preservation filed a lawsuit against the ballroom for alleging building without required approvals or congressional authorization. U.S. District Judge Richard Leon held a hearing on March 17th as he considers whether to block the project temporarily. Trump raised the military aspect of the project during a cabinet meeting on March 26th. Now it's no secret. The military wanted it more than anybody, Trump said. It was supposed to be a secret. But it became secret because the people that are really unpatriotic saying things. But it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It's going to be great. Aboard Air Force One, Trump characterized the ballroom as a shelter for the military component.
Charges are dropped against ex-officers in Kentucky. The pair involved in the Breonna Taylor case back in 2020. A federal judge has dismissed all remaining charges against two former Louisville police officers accused of providing false information on a no-knock search warrant that led to the fatal shooting of Breonna Taylor back in 2020. U.S. District Judge Charles Simpson signed an order on Friday, March 27th, dismissing the charges against Joshua James and Kyle Meany with prejudice. Now that means federal prosecutors cannot bring the same charges against them again using the same evidence. James and Meany were involved in drafting the search warrant used in the botched raid that killed Taylor, who was 26, in that March of the 2020. The dismissal came a week after federal prosecutors asked Simpson to dismiss the charges in the interest of justice. It was an expected yet notable development in the federal case against the former Louisville police officers, which began in 22. Meany was accused of knowingly providing false, misleading, and outdated info, and James was accused of supplying false info to secure the warrant. The Louisville Metro Police Department fired James in 2021 for policy violations and then dismissed Meany in August of 22 after his federal indictment. Previous ruling weakened the case against former police officers. As it stood, the case against James and Meany had already been weakened. Last year, Simpson, an 80-year-old Reagan appointee, dismissed the most serious charges after ruling that the government could not prove Meany and James's actions had directly caused Taylor's death. Two other Louisville police officers, Brett Hankinson and Kelly Goodlett, also were charged by federal prosecutors in 2022 in connection with a no-knock raid. Hankinson is free on bond while he appeals a conviction for violating Taylor's civil rights, which resulted in a 33-month sentence. During the raid, he fired 10 shots through a sliding glass door and window, and some of the rounds entered a neighboring apartment. The 33-month sentence was imposed by U.S. District Judge Rebecca Grady Jennings, despite the Justice Department's request of just 1 day. Hankinson promptly sought his release, but Jennings denied that request. Goodlett, the fourth Louisville police officer, pleaded guilty in 22 in helping falsify an affidavit for the warrant for Taylor's apartment, but she has not yet been sentenced. Civil rights advocates say dismissal of charges is another troubling sign. U.S. Representative Morgan McGarvey sent a letter March 27th to Attorney General Pam Bondi after the dismissal, asking the Justice Department to stop interfering with and undermining Louisville's efforts to deliver justice for Ms. Taylor's family and atone for her death in the community. The DOJ's decision to walk away from this case and their argument that it is somehow in the interest of justice is insulting, given the Trump administration's persistent undermining of police and justice reform efforts here in Louisville. In a statement, the NAACP Louisville branch described the dismissal as another troubling sign that the DOJ leadership does not value accountability when black lives are taken. This decision sends a dangerous message that those who abuse their authority and manipulate the system will not be held accountable. Taylor, who was an emergency room technician, was inside her apartment when she was shot by plainclothes officers at 12:40 a.m. local time, March 13th, during a narcotics investigation. Officers who said they knocked and announced themselves several times before forcibly entering had been trying to serve a no-knock search warrant. Neither Taylor nor Kenneth Walker, her boyfriend at the time, was the target of the probe, and no drugs were found in that home. Walker and several neighbors said they did not hear the officers identify themselves. As police entered the apartment, Walker shot an officer in the leg. He later said he believed that the officers were intruders. Now, Taylor's death, it sparked months of protests in Louisville and around the country.
You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 12:28, and we're going on to the money section. Costly care. Waiting for Medicare or steeper costs push some adults to delay their care. John Galvin knows he needs a colonoscopy, but he's waiting to schedule the procedure until December when he turns 65 and qualifies for Medicare. He was already thinking about delaying it. And then his monthly Obamacare insurance premium tripled this year to $2,460. about a third of his income, he said. And with a $2,700 deductible, he'd be on the hook for most of the diagnostic exam. Financial hit that he couldn't stomach. It was going to cost close to $3,000, said Galvin, who lives in Rhode Island, and recently retired as director of a durable medical equipment company. I put it off. Galvin said his wife Nancy is delaying a costly CT scan for a few years until she too qualifies for Medicare. The federal health program offers coverage for all Americans 65 and older. People on Affordable Care Act plans nearing retirement age experienced some of the largest price increases after the expiration of enhanced federal subsidies at the end of December. Those with incomes above 400% of the federal poverty level, which is $86,000 for a family of two, had been getting help paying for the plans since the Biden administration expanded the subsidies during the COVID-19 pandemic. Adults 50 to 64 made up about half of those enrollees. Now, without that federal financial help, some in this group say they're wrestling with whether to delay care until they qualify for Medicare. Not only does that put their physical health at risk, said patient advocates, doctors, and health policy researchers, but it potentially just shifts the cost and could lead to taxpayers paying even bigger bills to treat health problems that worsen amid the delays. There's going to be a lot of pent-up demand and unmet needs, said Jessica Schubel, a health policy consultant who worked in the Obama and Biden administrations. Medicare is going to have to spend heck of a lot of money covering and dealing with their treatment. The ACA has been a key source of health care coverage for people 50 to 64. Access to Obamacare plans helped cut the uninsured rate for this age group by half. That allowed some people to retire early while keeping coverage. It also provided a safety net for small business owners and those with jobs that don't offer health insurance. Last fall, the longest ever government shutdown occurred amid an unsuccessful effort by Democrats to extend the enhanced subsidies. Republicans opposing the extension have said the assistance went to insurers while incentivizing fraud and wasteful coverage. The issue will continue to have political relevance, especially in this year's midterm elections, including among older Americans who reliably show up to the polls, said Republican strategist Greg Keller. Is affordability going to be an issue? Absolutely, he said. Are health care prices going to be a factor into that? Yes. Even before the subsidies expired, the cost of medical care, nursing homes, and prescription drugs were among the top health-related concerns for people over 50. Middle-aged adults with Obamacare plans acutely feel the pinch of the expired subsidies because the ACA allowed insurers to charge adults in their 60s up to 3 times as much for premiums as those in their 20s, who generally use fewer medical services. And many middle-aged adults already were enrolled in the lowest cost plans available, which leaves them without cheaper options to fall back on. This is very dire for the older marketplace enrollees. Someone making a few dollars over 400% of the federal poverty level earns too much to get a subsidy now, and in some states, average premium payments were set to at least triple for this group. Many people are seeing yearly rate increases of thousands of dollars, and premium payments are totaling as much a quarter of their incomes. A primary care physician said he had regular conversations with older patients who are trying to figure out how to afford their medical care. Some in their early 60s are likely to drop ACA coverage because of the rising premiums. That's a gamble, he said. Marcy Heimbaugh may take that bet. The 63-year-old social services worker who lives in rural Illinois says her monthly premiums have more than doubled from roughly $1,000 to $2,300 for a plan with $10,000 out-of-pocket maximum. She knew she'd be paying more, she said, but didn't expect that kind of increase. A few months in, she's not sure she'll stick with the plan for the rest of the year. She says she may go uninsured, and I'm petrified to even think about that, she said. People want to buy their own insurance in the marketplace, and many middle-aged adults could afford it with just a little federal financial help. Those who drop coverage or delay until they reach age 65 might save money now, but that can be more costly for them and taxpayers later. There's a significant possibility that the purported savings associated with reducing subsidies as people approach retirement end up turning into higher utilization costs for Medicare. And Medicare enrollees aren't insulated from rising costs. In January, for example, the standard Medicare Part B premiums rose from $185 to almost $203. Until Gavin joins Medicare, he expects to burn through $30,000 retirement account to cover his marketplace premium plans and deductible. A 2024 AARP survey found 1 in 5 adults over 50 had no retirement savings, and 3 in 5 were worried they wouldn't have enough retirement savings to support themselves.
And loan delinquencies spur a dip in the average FICO score. Missed student loan payments continue to hurt Americans' average credit score, but the pain is evenly distributed according to the credit scoring company FICO. The national FICO score, or three-digit number used to summarize your credit report, it fell 1 point to 714 from April of 25 and 2 points from October of 24, the company said in its latest credit score report. The drop was driven primarily by resumed student loan delinquency reporting and a slight rise in mortgage delinquencies, FICO said. Declining FICO scores can be concerning because lenders use them to decide whether to approve loans and credit cards and to determine interest rates and credit limits. FICO scores range from 300 to 850. A higher score indicates lower risk to the lender, and then a lower score suggests a higher risk. So who's feeling the pressure? The share of Gen Z, defined in FICO's report as ages 18 to 29, that saw at least a 50-point decrease in their FICO scores. It jumped to 14.4% from 11.3% from October 24 to October of 25. So how are Gen Z and others coping? Gen Z has been opening credit cards, they said. But more credit cards doesn't mean they're spending recklessly. Instead, finding points to shift in how consumers relate to credit. It's no longer passive, it's intentional, they said. People are monitoring their credit and they're thinking strategically. Now, overall, 83% of Americans said maintaining or improving their credit scores, it is a priority for them this year, FICO has said. But inflation and affordability challenges forced nearly 1 in 4 people to make less than their minimum payment or skip a credit card or loan payment within the past 12 months. So, will student loans continue to pressure FICO scores? Student loan delinquencies have put the most pressure on the average FICO score as repayments, and reporting resumed at the end of 24. But that is now stabilizing, FICO said. What should creditors keep an eye on? Mortgage delinquencies have been ticking up to pre-pandemic levels, FICO said. Delinquency rates are nearly double the rates from October of 21, but have taken longer to reach pre-COVID levels, buffered by rising home prices. Now, many markets throughout the U.S. are seeing home prices falling from their 2022 highs, according to the agency. With delinquencies continuing an upward trajectory toward pre-pandemic levels, this sector requires ongoing vigilance during the period of continuing market transition, with credit scores said. FICO analysts also warn that even as Americans aim to maintain or improve their credit scores, an education gap remains that could prevent them from succeeding. Fundamental knowledge gaps remain about credit's behavior, and they actually qualify them for better lending terms, FICO said. For example, 2 out of 3 Americans either incorrectly believe income directly affects credit scores or acknowledge that they are unsure whether it does or not. That's a misconception that could prevent consumers from recognizing that credit improvement is achievable through behavioral changes rather than higher paychecks, FICO has said.
Economic buzzwords are having a moment. K-shaped economy, stagflation, grow in use. Every so often, a new set of economic buzzwords enters or re-enters the zeitgeist. This spring, terms like K-shaped economy, stagflation are having a moment. Such phrases capture real concerns about elevated prices, a slowing job market, and a widening gap between high-income and low-income households. But jargon can also obscure what economic developments mean for everyday Americans. Now, here are some of the most common buzzwords. K-shaped. One of the terms with most buzz, a K-shaped economy, is one in which some groups or sectors pull ahead financially, while others fall behind. It's also used to describe the post-pandemic recovery, when high-income earners typically saw their wealth and asset values increase. In contrast, many low-income earners with a few or no investments struggled to keep up as prices rose faster than their paychecks. Household wealth remains concentrated at the top, with the highest earning households driving a larger share of consumer spending, while lower income households make purchases but account for a smaller portion of the total spending. The notion that it's a K makes it sound like low income spending is going down, but that nuance of the proportion of the total gets lost. Mike's head of your economics prefers the term a two-speed economy. Stagflation. Stagflation represents a scenario in which the nation faces inflation, rising unemployment, and stagnant economic growth all at once. It's the Federal Reserve's worst-case scenario as it tries to balance its dual mandate of low unemployment and stable prices. The U.S. economy is not there yet, but economists see some warning signs. The Bureau of Labor Statistics data revealed that in February, the unemployment rate ticked up to 4.4%, still generally considered healthy, but higher than a year ago. The CPI inflation came in at 2.4% year over year, a figure that did not capture the jump in oil prices driven by the war, that some analysts expect will push the number higher in March. Meanwhile, the Bureau of Economic Analysis found core PCE inflation, which excludes food and energy prices, rose to 3.1% in January, its highest level in more than a year. And on March 13th, the agency revised its fourth quarter estimate of GDP growth down to 0.7%, down from 4.4% in the previous quarter. Supply shocks. Supply shocks are large and often sudden shifts in the availability of goods. They're uncommon, but the United States has faced several in recent years. During the pandemic, car production slowed because of factory closures and supply chain disruptions, though people kept buying vehicles. Lower supply and steady demand pushed prices higher. It's classic supply and demand economics. Today, the halting of traffic in the Strait of Hormuz and ultimately gas prices at the pump have risen gas oils and pushed oil prices up. Low, higher labor market. For months, analysts have dubbed the U.S. labor market low hire, low fire environment, meaning companies are neither quick to let go of employees nor eager to bring any new ones on board. I don't think companies really know the impact of AI on employment either. They're not really ready to let people go because they don't want to hire a bunch of people because they're not sure if they're going to need them. Job gains have been concentrated in sectors like healthcare, social assistance, and private education, meaning those looking for work outside of those industries often face a more difficult search. Workers have noticed and are clinging to their jobs in fear they won't find another. Uncertainty. One of the most common words used to describe U.S. economic conditions over the past year have been uncertain. Evolving tariff policy and an unclear timeline for the war with Iran, stock market volatility, the rise in AI adoption, and the 2026 midterm elections, worries about potential asset price correction down the road make the future hard to predict for economists. There's a lot of economic uncertainty, market uncertainty, political uncertainty, and it's all coming together right now. We just don't have the normal breadth of growth or strong foundation for the growth story that we'd like to have going into this sort of situation. Safe havens. These are typically investments including U.S. Treasury bonds, physical gold, and defensive stocks or shares in companies that provide consumer staples. Given persistent uncertainty, investors have flocked to all three over the past year. Bankrate financial analysts said that for the average consumer looking for a haven in today's environment, high-yield savings accounts and certificates of deposit are good options. For the average person who's going to something that's not just safe, it feels safe because you understand it and it feels comfortable. I think that those two fit the bill. Banks, FDIC, insurance, relative guarantees on that money, that can be one of the most beneficial safe havens. Affordability. Affordability and the affordability crisis are terms that shape the political campaigns in 2025 and continue to do so in 2026 as Americans struggle to afford groceries, healthcare, and housing. The University of Michigan's Consumer Sentiment Index in November dropped to 51, one of the lowest levels on record, though it has climbed back since. The survey's preliminary March results show it fell to 55.5, its lowest reading of 2026. A big portion of this is perception, and it's not that people are wrong. Things do cost a lot more than they used to. Price levels are far higher than they were prior to COVID or even midway through COVID. And those price changes happen so rapidly that people are still anchored to those old prices. They remember and they're sour about it, and it's hurting people. Federal funds rate. The federal funds rate is the interest rate banks charge to borrow from one another overnight. And the Federal Reserve's Federal Open Market Committee set a target rate range for the rate 8 times a year based on economic indicators such as inflation and unemployment. That rate serves as a benchmark for interest rates across the country, including for auto loans, mortgages, student loan debt, credit card debt, and savings accounts. Higher rates can help tame inflation and allow savers to earn more interest in their accounts, while lower rates help stimulate the economy by decreasing borrowing costs. At its last meeting, March 18th, the committee opted to hold a steady in 3.5 to 3.75%. Kangaroo market. Though the stock market typically labeled a bear market when bull prices are falling, when prices are falling, and a bull market when prices are rising, some markets say the market in early 22 looks more like a kangaroo market when stock prices jump up and down, often driven by sentiment or the latest news. And easy to remember the differences to think about animals' actions. The bear swipes its paws down when it attacks, while a bull thrusts its horns upward, and a kangaroo hops. Job growth, private credit, and Social Security. There's one thing people are talking about today we're talking about in a year, it's job growth, or lack thereof. The 6-month average is a minus 1,000. We're basically staying black, he said. Adding that 12 months from now, economists will be talking about job growth, not the Strait of Hormuz. It's likely it will have accelerated, re-accelerated by then. Nightly, it's keeping an eye on private credit. This opaqueness as to where this funding is coming from, who owns it, what's the actual quality of this stuff. We just don't know really with real certainty, and that's a risk. Kate said the term Social Security will soon need international conversation. The Congressional Budget Office now expects the Old Age and Survivors Insurance Trust Fund to be depleted in the year 2032, a year earlier than projected.
And you're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on our Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Our time is 12:45. And now we have USA Today's Human Resource column, which is, of course, written by our expert, Johnny C. Taylor. Asking for career advancement needs skill. Frame your conversations around your contributions. Here's our question to Johnny. When I ask about growth opportunities, my manager calls me impatient, even though my performance is strong. It feels like a stereotype for my generation. I'm 26, so how can I advocate for advancement without creating tension with my manager? And this comes from Jamal. Here's the answer. Wanting to grow is not a problem. How you pursue that growth determines whether you build credibility or you create friction. Let's address the label first. Words like impatient get thrown around far too casually, especially with the younger employees. Sometimes they're shorthand for valid concerns about readiness or timing. Other times they're a convenient way to shut down a legitimate conversation. Either way, the label itself isn't the primary issue. What matters is whether your manager is giving you clarity about what advancement actually requires. Here's the reality many employees miss. Strong performance alone doesn't automatically lead to advancement. Growth decisions depend on the business needs, structure, budget, timing, and whether there's a role to move into. Managers don't see constraints that employees don't. Managers often see constraints that employees don't. When those realities aren't discussed openly, then frustration fills that in. Before raising the topic again, be sure that you understand what you're after. If growth is what you want, say that. Don't frame the conversation around speed or entitlement. Frame it around contribution. It's also worth remembering that some of the most valuable growth doesn't come with an immediate title change. Taking on work beyond your formal role and building new capabilities, that often prepares you for future opportunities, sometimes inside your own organization. Sometimes somewhere else. Either way, that progress still counts, even when it doesn't show up right away on an organization chart. Now, tone matters more than most people realize. Even high performers can undercut themselves by sounding transactional, focused on outcomes without acknowledging the process. Ask for a roadmap. A good manager should be able to tell you what skills, behaviors, or results they're looking for and how that progress will be measured. If you leave the conversation with clearer expectations and timelines, even if the answer isn't what you hope for, well, that is progress. Now for the other side of the coin. If your manager consistently dismisses growth inquiries with labels instead of guidance, that is a concern. Calling someone impatient without offering direction, feedback, or next steps, it doesn't help anyone improve. It may signal a lack of investment in a developing talent, a flaw in your not a flaw in your approach. So in that case, broaden your outlook. Seek mentorship from other leaders. Look for opportunities to grow your skills and your visibility beyond your immediate manager. Ambition is not the problem. Poor communication is. When you anchor your advocacy in contribution, preparation, and results, but not urgency, you demonstrate maturity and leadership potential. When it's done right, self-advocacy does not create tension. It builds trust, and that's what ultimately drives advancement.
Well, we're out of money stories. We're getting back to the first section. And here, Saturn photos offer comprehensive detail, NASA says. Observations from two of NASA's most prolific space telescopes have revealed Saturn and its iconic rings in unprecedented detail. The James Webb Space Telescope and the Hubble Space Telescope teamed up to capture views of Saturn in both visible and infrared light. The result, what NASA describes as the most comprehensive view to date of the ring gas giant, one of our solar system's largest planets. Each telescope tells a different part of Saturn's story, offering a richer, more layered understanding of the gas giant's atmosphere. The telescopes also captured some of the pretty striking images of Saturn. The sixth planet from the Sun, Saturn, is, of course, famed for its rings, composed of billions of small chunks of ice and rock coated in cosmic dust. While 4 robotic spacecraft have explored Saturn, it wasn't until the Cassini probe arrived in 2004 that our understanding of the gas giant, the second largest in our solar system, behind Jupiter, began to take shape. After more than a decade of studying Saturn's complex system of rings and moons, Cassini was deliberately plunged into Saturn's atmosphere in 2017, ending its mission. Saturn's system is also as positively teeming with moons. In fact, a whopping 128 of its 274 observed moons were just discovered in March of 2025. The moons range from planet-sized Titan to smaller oddities, some of which are strangely shaped like potatoes or ravioli. And at least 2 of them, Mimas and Enceladus, have recently been in the news as potential harbors of water, a sign that the worlds could be habitable. The newly released images highlight features of Saturn's busy atmosphere. Hubble highlights subtle cloud banding and color variations, while Webb's infrared vision probes the different atmospheric layers, bringing out storms, waves, and growing ring structures in striking detail. Both of them sense sunlight reflected from Saturn's banding clouds and hazes, but where Hubble reveals subtle color variations across the planet, Webb's infrared view senses clouds and chemicals at many different depths in the atmosphere, from the deep clouds to the tenuous upper atmosphere. The Hubble Space Telescope captured an image of Saturn in visible light in August of 2024 that NASA said reveals the planet's bright ring system and information about the chemical makeup of its atmosphere. Several of Saturn's largest moons also appear in the image, with Janus visible to the left of the planet along the rings, and Mimas seen closer to the disk. Farther right of Saturn is Epimetheus, which serves a similar orbit with Janus. According to NASA, the new image adds to scientists' ability to track Saturn's seasonal changes, storms, and shifting atmospheric features. The James Webb Space Telescope then captured an image of Saturn in infrared light in November of 2024, revealing details of Saturn's atmosphere and rings shrouded from visible light. Because Saturn's rings are made up of water ice particles that reflect the sunlight, the Webb's image reveals a feature that's exceptionally bright. And here's a picture of it with a bright white rings around banded Saturn. Observations in infrared also unveiled Saturn's atmosphere in unprecedented detail, showing distinct cloud patterns known as cloud bands, and how temperature fluctuations, winds, and other factors can cause subtle variations. Webb's infrared observations lend new insights to scientists about the planet's complex weather patterns and dynamic atmosphere, according to NASA. Similar to Hubble's image, several of the Saturn moons are visible, including Janus near the rings, and to the left of the planet, and Dione below. Enceladus also appears near the rings. In the picture, they're showing little tiny dots. What is the Hubble Space Telescope? The Hubble Space Telescope reached a milestone in 2025, marking its 35th year of operation since launching in 1990 on the Space Shuttle Discovery. In its time orbiting Earth, Hubble has shaped our understanding of the universe by observing the atmospheric composition of planets around other stars, and even discovering dark energy, a mysterious force that causes the universe to expand. Hubble's observations of Saturn have for decades helped scientists build a record of its evolving atmosphere.
And this comes from the front section also. Community is shattered after Tennessee bus crash. 2 students were killed in a 3-vehicle accident. Sorrow punctuated the opening of the Toyota Hub City Grand Prix race in Jackson, Tennessee, on March 28th. The day before, a school bus carrying students and staff from Kenwood Middle School crashed on its way from Clarksville, Tennessee, to the student competition that was hosted by Green Power USA. Officials said the crash also involved a Tennessee Department of Transportation dump truck and a Chevy Trailblazer. 2 students were pronounced dead at the scene, and several more were airlifted to hospitals across the region. The opening ceremony of the Grand Prix event included a moment of silence, prayer, and acknowledgments of those victims who died in that crash. Today feels a little different, but now know that my family and the city has been praying for you all. For those that we lost yesterday, Jackson Mayor Scott Conger told dozens of coaches, parents, students, and staff gathered in the parking lot of the Jackson Rockabilly Stadium. I want you to have a clear head. Do well. We welcome you all to our city. The evening of March 28th, hundreds of mourners gathered for a vigil outside Kenwood Middle School. Grieving parents, students, elected officials, and community members remembered the students' loss while the sun set for only a second time since the day of that crash. We are Clarksville strong, said Pastor Dwayne Carter, who helped organize the event. Everyone stands together as one. Still shaken middle school students, they all stood arm in arm, hugging and weeping as candles were lit in the memory of their classmates. Carter told the crowd, rely on faith. Prayer is always in need in the community, especially under these circumstances, he said. But we are trusting and we believe in God to heal your heart. We are trusting and believing in God to guide you along this journey. Our hearts are shattered. The Clarksville-Montgomery County School System bus, it was carrying 25 students and 5 staff members from Kenwood Middle School, according to the Tennessee Highway Patrol. It crashed around noon on March 27th on Highway 70 near Cedar Grove in Carroll County, which is about 20 minutes outside of Jackson. The identities of those killed, it details on the injuries and the cause of the wreck. It has not been disclosed as of March 28th. The wreck, it triggered a massive multi-agency response. Officials said 7 air ambulances took patients to various hospitals. Families were reunited at a church then in nearby Huntington. Our hearts are shattered at this tragic loss of 2 young lives, a March 27th Facebook post said. Please continue to keep these families in your hearts. We continue to pray for these students and the employees and injured and everyone who is affected by today's accident. The Kenwood Middle School community will need our continued support, and we will share opportunities to assist these families as details are confirmed. Student racers, they honor the Kenwood Middle School. At the Grand Prix race event in Jackson then on March 28th, some teams taped numbers 52 and 72 on the hoods of their go-karts that they had built ahead of the races. Those numbers would have been on the Kenwood Middle School cars. We are thinking about Kenwood Middle community, Green Power USA Executive Director Drew Sparks said. I've been talking with the teacher of that school off and on for the past several hours, and it's just heartbreaking. Lawmakers react to the fatal crash. Tennessee Governor Bill Lee asked his fellow Tennesseans to join him and his wife Maria in prayer for all those affected by the deadly wreck. We are heartbroken over this loss of life, and we just ask for God's healing for the injured, the governor has said. Major Travis Plotzer, who serves with the Tennessee Highway Patrol, paused before delivering an update during his news briefing. I want to speak directly to the families of the students we lost. There are no adequate words we can use to ease the pain you're feeling right now. It's a parent's worst nightmare. Clarksville Mayor Joe Pitts released a lengthy statement the morning of March 28th of the wreck. The depth of our sadness hasn't even been felt yet, since the days to come will be difficult. Our city grieves at the loss of these children who were much too young with their whole lives in front of them. They were on their way to an event that this group of bright, talented students had prepared for during the year. Those that were injured will heal physically, but emotional toll will be difficult to overcome for years. He urged the community to rally. Be wary of any finger pointing or speculation, he said. Instead, let's show our love and support for these students and families. And you're listening to a reading of articles from our USA Today for Tuesday, March the 31st on our Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We will return to you for more readings just after this short break now. And your readers again today are Jody
and Alan Blackburn.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
Okay.
We continue now with our reading of articles from today's issue of USA Today. Your readers are
Jody.
and Alan Blackburn, and we're on to the sports section now. UConn completes a rally on a three prayer. For 39 minutes and 59 seconds, it looks like UConn's bid for a third national title in 4 seasons is going to fall short. Until freshman guard Braylon Mullins hit one of the great shots in men's NCAA history by putting the Huskies in the Final Four with a 73-72 defeat of Duke. The unlikely finish came after UConn trailed by as much as 19 in the first half. We were down by 2 with 10 seconds left. Attempting to get a steal, Silas Demery deflected a pass by Duke guard Caden Boozer at midcourt. Mullins recovered the deflection and passed to Alex Caravan, who gave him the ball back 35 feet from the basket and the clock winding down. With no other option, he launched it with the game in balance. It switched to the basket with 0.4 of a second left. We were trying to force a turnover or a foul or the worst free throw shooter, and the ball got tipped, Mullins said. I threw the ball to Caravan, and I thought Caravan was going to shoot the ball. But he threw the ball back to me, and I had to shoot it. The shot was something that Mullins had recreated growing up. And now comes with the Huskies, with the Huskies now advancing to the Final Four in Indianapolis. And it'll be a homecoming for Mullins, who played 30 minutes from the state capitol. You play for those moments, Mullins said. You dream about that. You definitely had that thought in childhood. This is a one-of-a-kind experience. The heroics from Mullins were preceded by a mostly dominant effort by Duke behind twins Cameron and Caden Boozer, who combined for 42 points. UConn cut a 15-point half-time lead to single digits with 12:20 left. However, the Blue Devils led by 11 with less than 8 minutes left after a pair of free throws. But the Huskies kept chipping away and didn't panic while the mostly Duke crowd was anticipating another trip to the Final Four. The poise was helped by a lineup of mostly upperclassmen that had more experience than the freshman-led Duke team. It takes strong men, UConn coach Dan Hurley said. It takes a strong team. It takes a tough team. It takes strong men. It takes a bunch of players that let us coach them and let us coach them hard. And that starts in June. We run a very intense program. Caravan and Ball, the two regulars remaining from that team that won consecutive titles in 23 and 24, struggled throughout the game. The duo are the team's second and third leading scorers, and they combined for just 15 points on 5 of 21 shooting. But they were each instrumental in the comeback when the pressure was the greatest. Ball had 2 baskets and a free throw in a run. They cut Duke's 9-point lead with 5 minutes left at 67-65 before the final immediate timeout. Caravan's three-pointer is only one of the game after 4 previous misses with 50 seconds left, trimmed the margin to 1. You just got to keep moving through the game, Ball said. Your shot is not always going to fall. You just got to keep playing, make plays that affect the game. When I saw Braden, and for some reason I thought I had the gut instinct to pass it to him, Caravan said, I looked at the rim and it was 5 seconds left. I thought maybe something better could develop. I had Cam Boozer in front of me, which was a harder, more difficult shot, so I passed it to Braylon. When I saw him release it, I thought it was like go in, and it did go in, and Duke's attempt for a miraculous win with less than a second left, and when Caravan tipped away the inbound pass. The unlikely victory keeps UConn's quest for win a third title in 4 seasons, something accomplished only by 2 schools, Kentucky and UCLA. with neither coming in the last 50 years. The next step will be against number 3 Illinois in the national semifinals, April 4th.
And now Michigan message is, you don't want to play them. With Tennessee already down by 19, one basket wasn't going to make the difference. The game was effectively over, and whether Michigan won by 10 or 20, the outcome was still going to be the same. Michigan coach Dusty May challenged that goaltending call anyway. The Wolverines weren't just here to win. They were here to send a message. They're the best team in the country, and they will steamroll anyone who gets in their way. It's just people stepping up to the moment, guard Roddy Gale Jr. said. I feel like March brings out the best in people. It certainly has with this team. Top-seeded Michigan routed 6th-seeded Tennessee 95-62 on March 29th in the men's NCAA tourney Midwest Region Final to reach the Final Four for the third time since 2013. With apologies to Moritz Wagner and Glenn Robinson III, these Wolverines have the best chance yet to win the school's first national title since '89. In a span of 2 days, Michigan humbled the country's top offensive team and the SEC's best defensive team, and the Wolverines barely broke a sweat doing it. They've scored 90 or more points and shot 50% or better in each of their NCAA tourney games, and the 33-point win over Tennessee was the biggest blowout of the weekend. Michigan plays fellow number 1 seed Arizona in the Final Four in Indianapolis on April the 4th. When this group got together, we all wanted to make it the national championship and win it, Lendenberg said. We worked tirelessly on making sure that our mental was right, not just physical, and we all trust each other. We play hard for each other. We make extra plays for each other. We're going to do whatever we can for each other. Michigan is only 2 seasons removed from a team that lost 24 games. While quick turnarounds are more doable now with the transfer portal, building chemistry when there's a new coach and new players presents its own challenges. Now add in being thrust into the spotlight as a national title contender a month into the season, and Michigan very easily could have gone sideways. The most difficult part is that everyone starts getting so much attention and advice. Literally everything they get more of, they said. It's difficult not to make it about you because the people you're talking about are making it about you. Now, though Michigan's Fab Five never won an NCAA title, they changed college basketball with their outsized personalities, their baggy shorts, their black socks. These Wolverines aren't going to have that kind of influence, but they have got a similar brand of fun. Lendenborg is as goofy as he is good, and Gale isn't far behind. They all love to just hype each other up. When Lendenborg said Will Shedder deserved a shout-out for his toughness, Nimari Burnett woofed in response, and their tight-knit chemistry, it isn't even forced. They might be stealing people's souls, but they're having a blast doing it. That's our main thing. We say before every game, it's just to go out there and have fun. We're not worrying about the stats or the scoreboard. Michigan cruised through the regular season, not losing a single Big Ten road game. Its 2 losses, that was to Wisconsin in January and then Duke in late February, were by a combined 8 points. The Wolverines spent time at number 1, and they were never ranked lower than 3rd after December the 1st. But the Wolverines didn't have their usual swagger in the Big Ten tourney. When they lost to Purdue in the title game, it wasn't that big a surprise. It also might have been the best thing for them. Watching another team cut down the nets, feeling that there was something that we didn't want to feel again, Gale said. Message received.
Unwanted spotlight found her. The University of Connecticut has another superstar in Sarah Strong. Gino Auriemma couldn't believe what he was seeing during a UConn women's basketball practice last February. The Huskies were scrimmaging using rules from a now extinct style of girls basketball called 6-on-6 that designates players as guards or forwards. 3 players from each team on either side of the court playing offense or defense, not crossing the center line. Things got heated quickly as teammates clapped in each other's faces, committed hard fouls. At the center of all was Huskies forwards Sarah Strong, then a freshman whose quiet disposition was usually more stoic than Spitfire. After recruiting her for years and coaching her for months, this person Auriemma got a glimpse of Strong's full competitive nature. It reminded him of one of his program's most famous provocateurs, Diana Taurasi. You saw a different side of Sarah. You saw the Diana side. Strong has a very mild, easygoing demeanor, but that just masks what's underneath. Strong is now a sophomore, still rarely shields that mask. As a front runner for a slew of awards, including National Player of the Year, whose talent has WNBA's coaches salivating 2 years before she'll be draft eligible, Strong remains an enigma to the general public and at times to those who know her best. Still, she does not seek the spotlight, but it finds her on the court. Strong is a total package, a 6'2" forward who sets the table for her teammates, scores at all 3 levels, and smothers challengers on defense. She was a core member of UConn's 2025 NCAA championship. It is a major reason the undefeated Huskies are favorites to make the title game again. Her greatest strengths are what she doesn't always show: her relentless competitiveness, intense study of her own game, and ability to learn new things quickly, whether it's a basketball concept or teaching herself to play the guitar and keyboard. She plays aggressively but does not showboat. Any flash is in her skill and not her emotional reaction. In practice, though, Auriemma purposely criticizes his best player to bring out the fire he knows is there. Anything that puts her at a disadvantage and she has to fight back, I think she secretly relishes that. Strong admitted as much in her eyes. Arrogance is the greatest sin. When people do too much on the basketball court, that really gets me there, Strong said. I only get started if someone else gets started. I want to make that clear, because I try not to yell "and one" or little things, and I don't trash talk to me because I'm just going to take it too far. When Strong was in the 5th grade, she played on a boys' team coached by her father. Being underestimated by some of her male teammates only made her go harder. Nobody can deny Strong's skill now. She leads the Huskies in points, rebounds, steals, and blocks. Her team just won its 6th consecutive Big East championship and earned the number 1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament. As talented as Strong is, she and Auriemma believe she hasn't scratched the surface. Strong is still starting to define a brand of superstardom, and she'll decide whether to let you in on the secret. Why you can't measure Strong against past UConn stars? There's a natural inclination to compare Strong to the UConn greats that preceded her. Players like Sue Bird and Paige Buchers, Nafisa Collier, Maya Moore, Brianna Stewart, and Taurasi. Auriemma disputes any one-to-one skill comparisons, but said Strong possesses the same competitive drive, intelligence, and multidimensional qualities as previous Husky game changers. All the great players I've had the opportunity to coach all had similar makeups. Sarah's one of those high-level players that looks you right in the eye every time you're talking to her and gets every single word you're saying. If she has a question, she's not afraid to ask it, because to her, I don't want to miss anything when I'm on the court. She's curious about the game, and I think she's curious about life in general, and that contributes to her ability to play at such a high level. Strong holds UConn's freshman record for rebounds, ranked 2nd behind Moore in freshman points, and ranked 2nd behind Buchers in freshman assists. This season is Strong's 59th career game. She became the 3rd fastest program in program history to score 1,000 career points, behind Moore and Booker. She also broke UConn's sophomore steals record. Strong grew up admiring Moore and Stewart, but squirms when observers try to juxtapose her game with any Husky legend. I don't know why we're comparing like that. I've only been in college 2 years. Strong said, I thank you for the compliment, but I don't know. They're really good, and I don't want to compare myself to them. I'll just focus on what I can do to become a better basketball player. Strong has been working at perfecting her skills since she was 7, when her youth games were the opening act for her mom's professional games in Spain. Basketball is in Strong's blood. Her mom, Allison Fisher, was the number 5 draft pick in the 1998 WNBA draft out of Harvard. She played 10 seasons in the league before finishing her career overseas. Her dad, Danny Strong, played at NC State and had a 15-year pro career in Europe. In 2006, the year Strong was born, her mom left for the Charlotte Sting while pregnant. Because of that, Fisher likes to say Sarah was on an NBA court in the womb. Strong was born in Spain and lived all over that country and Italy, where her mom played, before moving to North Carolina at age 10. Back in the States, she lived close to both sets of grandparents and competed for her dad's travel basketball team. Transition wasn't easy, but Strong is adaptable. Her life experiences have really lent themselves to her development as a player. She had exposure to, I get into this new system and survive. Whether it's learning the language or figuring out how to play, she's really adept at that. Every Sunday, Strong and her dad trained for hours. Often their workouts were in a back road gym called The Barn, an industrial-sized shed with a full-size court and a weight room. Strong played point guard when she was younger and thrived as a ball handler and passer. After she had a growth spurt, she and her dad worked on her footwork so she could dominate the paint, too. They watched and dissected hours of video of Strong's games, UConn games, NBA games, to the point where Strong can't watch a basketball game without analyzing every aspect. We always had the approach, if you learn, let's learn everything. Danny Strong said. Let's learn the game holistically. Her mom played inside, played outside. I played inside, played outside. We both had long careers because we could do both. I think you become very valuable for a team when you can do a mixture of everything. The one thing Sarah Strong may have lacked back then was confidence. Her father had to urge Strong to take over games in high school because she would pass instead of shoot in critical moments. Strong gradually accepted more responsibility, said Ted Monsey, who coached her for 4 summers. When Strong started to really believe that she was possibly the best player on every court she steps on, not that someone told her that, but that she really believed it, is when I think her person grew and the player also grew. For Danny Strong, the shift was exemplified before UConn played in the 2025 national game. Father and daughter have a long-running pregame tradition where Danny calls Sarah and delivers a motivational speech. But as UConn prepared to face South Carolina, Danny was at a loss for words. He'd never competed in a national title game. What could he say to his daughter? Then his phone rang. She called me before I called her and said, "Dad, we're locked in. We've got this." Danny Strong recalled, "It was amazing, you know. We went through the whole path of that, me being that motivation, me being that person to have the words. And here she comes, calming my nerves in the moment." UConn went 37-3 en route to the program's 12th national championship last year. But one of those losses in late December, Strong missed a pair of free throws in the final seconds, and UConn lost to USC by 2. The game haunted Strong, who spent her Christmas break over at home watching it over and over. Strong likes to win at everything: soccer, chess, school field day competitions. She's still that way, especially against her teammates in UConn CD games, in which can be anything from trivia to bouncing ping pong balls into a cup.
And you're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on our Niagara Frontier radio reading service. It's now 1:15 and we're still in sports. We're going to talk golf. Woodland inspires in PGA Tour win. His Houston Open victory, it comes after his 2023 brain surgery. Gary Woodland was on an island. This time it was one worth being stranded on. He strolled down the fairway of Memorial Park in Houston, his caddy Brennan Little flanking him nearby. But the stage was Woodland's. He is playing partners Minwoo Lee and Nikolai Hojgaard. They walked about 50 yards behind him, raising their arms and encouraging the crowd's chants that began to rain down. "Gary, Gary, Gary," they said. The 41-year-old, who had surgery in September 23 to remove a brain lesion and revealed earlier this month his struggles with his post-traumatic stress. As a side effect of that, he won the Texas Children's Houston Open on March 29th. Last year, he finished runner-up at Memorial Park, his best finish since the surgery. He did one better this year. As the crowd chanted his name when that final putt dropped, the emotion poured out of Woodland in the form of tears and breaths and a realization that he can overcome anything. Obviously, coming out with what I'm battling a couple weeks ago definitely freed me up a bit, he said. It took a lot off my plate. It allowed me to focus my energy where I need to, and that's on me and taking care of myself so I can chase my dreams. Now, Woodland's march to victory, his first since capturing the U.S. Open at Pebble Beach back in 2019, it was years in the making. It started slowly. He returned to the sport in 24, Sony Open, following his brain surgery. Then he reunited with Coach Randy Smith, who at one point called him soft and told him he needed to start swinging harder and playing with tenacity that helped him win a major championship. Then came the emotional interview 20 days ago at the Players' Championship when he revealed that he has PTSD and how it has affected him on the golf course. That revelation helped ease the stress on Woodland. Why was he trying to hide what he was going through when he couldn't control what was affecting his day-to-day life? Woodland said it felt like thousands of pounds was lifted right off his shoulders. On the evening of March 29th, he gained some weight back, but this time it was from hauling around that latest trophy. I'm definitely in a better place now than I was a month ago. Woodland had begun the final round with a one-shot lead. By the time he made the turn, he led by 6 shots over Hojgaard. Woodland birdied 4 of his final 5 holes, including numbers 7 through 9, the only player to accomplish that feat all week. On the back 9, he led by as many as 7 shots. Woodland stood on the tee at the 18th with a 4-shot lead and ended up winning by 5, finishing at 21 under for 259 for the week. Even better, the win gets him into the Masters in 2 weeks' time at Augusta National. When Smith and Woodland partnered up again a couple of years ago, Smith told Woodland he needed to stop swinging softly at the ball and get back to what he's doing best, trying to pulverize the ball. His old shafts didn't allow him to do that with control. This weekend, Woodland ranked 7th in strokes gained approach, but he was first in putting, gaining 8.325 strokes with the flat stick. Oftentimes in golf, players get stranded or often get lost and never find their way back. Woodland was himself on an island, though something out of his control had put him there. He not only found his way back, but he put together one of the most inspiring performances in recent PGA Tour memory. I've talked to some veterans that told me, you can't do this on your own. You've got to talk, Woodland said. And so it was just time. My therapist, my wife, more than anybody, just kept telling me I've got to take care of myself before I can help other people. That's hard. I want to help people. I've realized after the first 4 weeks when I played how hard it was on me, that I had to take care of myself because I was getting off. That interview, that was the first step for that.
In IndyCar racing, Palou wins as pit stop error cost Lundgaard. Out of Leeds, Alabama, a glance at the final results make it seem like Alex Palou was unchallenged in his 13.3-second victory in IndyCar's Children's of Alabama Indy Grand Prix. But Palou's winning margin was a misleading. As Palou pitted for the last time at Barber Motorsports Park, Arrow McLaren's Christian Lundgaard took the race lead for the second time. When Palou exited pit lane, his number 10 Chip Ganassi Racing Honda was stuck behind the traffic of Mick Schumacher and Dennis Hauger, who were in the tail end of the lead lap. Lundgaard managed to further his lead when Palou navigated past Schumacher and Hauger. When Lundgaard entered his final pit stop 4 laps later, lap 69, it appeared he'd end up in the battle to defeat the 4-time NTT IndyCar Series champion. But Arrow McLaren's pit crew had an issue securely put at the right rear tire on his number 7 Chevrolet, causing the pit stop to take nearly 18 seconds. The blunder essentially ended Lundgaard's chance to win, allowing Palou to cruise through the last 22 laps with the lead. "We had the car to win the race," Lundgaard said. "We had the pace. We had the track position at the time. I'm not sure what happened in the pit stop. I'm not sure I can really comment too much on it. And again, it's unfortunate." Kyle Moyer, Lundgaard's strategist at Arrow McLaren, told IndyStar that it happens, and we win as a team and we lose as a team. Even after the elongated pit stop, Lundgaard passed Rahal Letterman, Lanigan's Graham Rahal, on lap 88 of 90 to finish second. Lundgaard feels it would have been fair and square fight with Palou for a win had the error not occurred. "We finished in second place, and we shouldn't be that frustrated," he said. "When you're up against a car that's been the most competitive and best car, IndyCar, for the past many years, to have a chance to beat him fair and square, that hurts. It's the position that we've been trying to be in for the past 3 years. I think we got there today, really. Just to miss out on it for something like that is unfortunate. And I think there's a lot of learning to take from it." Lundgaard is in his second season with Arrow McLaren, and he's searching for his first win with the team after getting his lone career victory in 2023 with Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan. Lundgaard now has finished on the podium 8 times since joining Arrow McLaren. In Lundgaard's 9 podium finishes in his last 3 seasons, the Danish driver has finished behind Palou 8 times, including last year's Children of Alabama's Indy Grand Prix. Lundgaard has repeatedly suffered from Palou's greatness. "Every time I'm on the podium, second or third, he's first," Lundgaard said. Earlier this month, when Palou won the Grand Prix of St. Petersburg, well, he finished third. "It's pretty annoying." In St. Petersburg, Florida, Palou was truly unchallenged, unlike at Barber. This could have been Lundgaard's shot to finally beat Palou, yet it ended up being deja vu. "I feel like it would have been a very close battle, and may would have been a race that Lundgaard could have won," Palou said. "If you look at the result and you don't follow the race, the timings, then maybe then you look like you were so much faster than everybody else." That was not the truth. Lundgaard moved from 7th to 3rd in IndyCar's point standings, but he remains behind Palou, who's second, and Kyle Kirkwood, who's first. The 24-year-old is still in search of a significant breakthrough moment, decide a career-best 5th-place finish in 2025.
Now we have MLB opening weekend winners and losers. Prospects Japanese shine, but 2 rookies flop. 5 days to play 3 games across a seemingly endless sea of streamers and networks isn't exactly the way baseball was meant to be staged. But you made it, and Major League Baseball's lovable slog should get more recognizable after this seemingly eternally opening weekend. So USA Today Sports takes a quick look at the winners and losers. Here's the winners first, the Youth Brigade. And to think number 1 prospect Connor Griffin's ticket to the minor leagues might have been dimmed the start of the season for prospect heads. Nope, the kids showed out beyond anyone's wildest dreams right from the first pitches March 26th, such as the one Kevin McGonigal smoked for a double seconds into his major league career, part of a 4-hit debut for the Tigers. Still on winners, the Yankees' Jay pennant race repeat. The death of a tiebreaker game could take some shine off a great divisional race. So it was last year when the Blue Jays and the Yankees each won 94 games and Toronto won the division based on the head-to-head record. With the Blue Jays significantly altered yet also nursing a World Series hangover and a Yankees in apparent danger of run-it-back syndrome, it was unclear how the American League East beasts might break the gate. It turns out they missed nary a beat. Both clubs registered convincing sweeps against decent but unproven opponents, as the Blue Jays got leadoff homers and walk-off hits and 21 combined punch-outs from Kevin Gausman and Dylan Cease to sweep the Athletics. Still on winners, the Pirates are trying to win. Sometimes fans and media alike can get a little too caught up in the off-season transactions. Yet for Pittsburgh Pirates fans, screaming at management to do anything, winter after winter, almost always fell on deaf ears. But finally, the Pirates did something this winter, and lo and behold, the product appears healthier. Still on winners, Japanese sluggers. They were the highest profile hitters coming from foreign lands this winter. Yet Kazumo Okamoto and Mutaka Murakami's combined value of their contracts did not reach $100 million. Contact concerns and the worry that power in Japan would transfer to MLB. Well, guess who's trailing only DeLauter in the Major League home runs now? Now let's talk the losers, rookie managers. Hey, but not all of them. Beltway bros Craig Albernez of Baltimore and Blake Butera of Washington, they each won their first 2 games as manager. The Nationals startling the Cubs at Wrigley Field. Yet, it was 2 surprise hires, relative greenhorns, who had a rough go. You've surely heard about Tony Vitello making the jump from collegiate ball to the majors. It's a big deal, and at the same time, potentially not the big deal folks have made of it. So long as Tony V wins the usual 81 games near the China Basin, it doesn't look too weird doing it. And now we're still on losers. NL Team West, north and south of Vin Scully Way. They're a combined 1-11. The Arizona Diamondbacks suffered 3 particularly soul-crushing losses to the LA Dodgers, who wore their gold line championship togs all weekend and then simply kept hitting balls over the fence, the last off Will Smith's bat to cap the sweep. The Giants were flattened. San Diego could not hang with the Tigers. And yes, the Rockies are winless, and it will only get more difficult for a 119-loss team that couldn't ring in a new year with 1 victory in Miami. And finally, the last one is the losers, CB Bucknor. No, ABS was not meant to humiliate. It just works out that way sometimes, with the automated ball strike challenge system overturning 6 calls in an 11-game on March the 28th.
In NASCAR racing, Elliott puts Hendrick in the win column. NASCAR's trip to Martinsville Speedway came at a good time for Hendrick Motorsports. No, the constant contender had not turned to rubbish in the last 2 months, but had not captured a NASA Cup Series victory through the first 6 weeks of 2026. That served as their longest winless streak to open a season since 2019. If there was ever a perfect place to change that, it was in the historic Speedway in Ridgeway, Virginia, though. Chase Elliott grabbed the checkers in the Cookout 400 on March 29th. The win marked Hendrick's 31st on the half-mile oval, the most of any organization at any track in the sport. Elliott led 84 laps, then he held off Denny Hamlin, who dominated the first 2 stages, before settling into the runner-up spot. Elliott's victory doubled as an anniversary gift. He debuted in the Cup Series on the same day, and at the same track 11 years ago. Now, in his 11th full-time campaigns, Elliott carries 22 career wins, including 2 at Martinsville. It's really cool when this stuff works out, and to win these races is so tough. Just really grateful for the opportunity as always. I never take it for granted. Trust me. It was a dream come true for me. It required some smart moves by Elliott and a dash of luck. Alan Gustafson, the crew chief for the number 9 Chevrolet, called for Elliott to short pit on lap 261. The strategy panned out for the duo when a caution flag on lap 312 allowed Elliott to pit again from second and remain up front. We took a gamble and we were going to two-stop that last stage. I honestly think it was going to work out really good for us either way. Just so proud of them, man. Hamlin looked to be doing it again. In 2025, he commanded the spring race at Martinsville, pacing everyone for 274 laps on his way to victory lane. He suppressed that total this go-around with 292 laps led. He also laid down the fastest qualifying time March 28th and snatched 2 stage wins in the race. It was Hamlin at his best. Following the final caution, Elliott was wrestled away the lead, and Hamlin spent the rest of the race in unsuccessful pursuit. He did a good job of controlling the pace there, Hamlin said. It really came from that bad restart I had besides Ross Chastain. Not much really I could have done there, and I felt like we gave it all.
And you're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on our Niagara Frontier radio reading service. Our time is 1:29, and I'm going to move you over to our lifestyle section. My header right here is called the iHeart Radio Awards. It's Taylor's night, and Travis was there too. Taylor Swift sent the Dolby Theater into an uproar during the iHeartRadio Awards multiple times, starting when she entered hand-in-hand with their fiancé Travis Kelce and ending with her acceptance speech. The life of a showgirl was really inspired by the energy I felt looking into the crowds and seeing you guys, and connecting with you every single night, Swift said on March 26th after winning the Pop Album of the Year. The energy came out was feeling really happy and strong and confident. Now, this singer-songwriter, she wore a mint green corset ensemble with sequin embellishments, and they have a beautiful picture of that. It's very gorgeous. She's smiling and holding up the trophy that she won. Swift took home many trophies, including Artist of the Year, Pop Artist of the Year, Album of the Year, Pop Album of the Year, Song of the Year, Pop Song of the Year, Best Lyrics, that was fan voted, Best Music Video, fan voted, and the Favorite Tour Style, fan voted, the Eras Tour. She did not win Favorite TikTok Dance, that was fan voted, for The Fate of Ophelia, nor Favorite on Screen, Taylor Swift, The Eras Tour, The End of an Era. Now, Swift, who is 36, has attended 4 of the iHeartRadio Music Awards, but this is the first show awards to include Kelce. The couple walked into the arena 1 minute before the show. The night's host, rapper Ludacris, gave the couple a shout-out as he opened the show. He said he wanted to be invited back for a 3rd year, so he'd appreciate it if Swift could put in a good word for him. She waved and nodded, smiled. In a commercial break, she hugged Summer, Lainey Wilson, and Ella Langley. She also congratulated Alex Warren on his win for New Pop Artist. The star couple were the first 2 to jump out of their chairs after his Ordinary and Fever Dream performance. A Swift history with iHeartRadio. Stepping back, Swift memorably stepped on stage with Madonna during her first show in 2015, playing guitar during a performance of Ghost Town. Then, in 2023, she returned to accept the Innovator Award, which was given to Miley Cyrus this year. You have to give yourself permission to fail, Swift said in her acceptance speech. I try as hard as I can not to fail because it's embarrassing, but I do give myself permission to. Swift routinely has delivered recorded acceptance speeches when she wasn't in the building, including for Female Artist of the Year back in 2018, Pop Album of the Year in 2020 and 21, Artist of the Year in 24, and Tour of the Century in 25. Last year, she also shared an exclusive mirror ball performance from the opening night of the Eras Tour.
And here's a story about the movie scene. Brie, spelled B-R-I-E, masters evil day job and takes a fresh take on food. Alison Brie is ready to show her dark side. The actress and producer rose to fame on the quirky NBC sitcom Community, starring as Annie Edison opposite such actors as Joel McHale and Donald Glover. Now she's ready for a hard pivot, playing Evil Lynn, the supervillain Skeletor's right-hand woman in Masters of the Universe. I was really excited to get to play a supervillain, she says. I watched a bunch of old cartoons, and she really is like a classic femme fatale character, but with a sense of humor, just unlike anything I've ever really done. A lot of the work that I've done, everything is about reality, Brie says. In Masters, she adds, the point is that everyone is larger than life. Some people physically, this character more so just in her evilness. It was so fun to work on, and the cast is great. And here's a picture of a smiling Alison Brie as she attends the Vanity Fair Oscar party on March 15th. The cast features up-and-comers and established A-listers, including Jared Leto, Idris Elba, Camila Mendez, and Nicholas Galitzine. Brie, who's 43 years old, is fresh off a shoot with her husband and fellow actor David Franco for the 2025 body horror flick Together. The title says it all. When Dave and I shot together, it was truly the two of us. Like 90% of the shoot was Dave and I, all day, every day. She says, universe, she says, is the opposite and expands into this new world. Though Franco will be absent from the set, that won't mean a lack of togetherness for the couple who wed in 2017. Dave and I prioritize quality so much in our relationship. She says, so much so that it dilutes the importance of a major holiday like Valentine's Day and anniversary, she says. Most years, and I'm not kidding, Dave's mom texts us happy anniversary, and that's how we both remember. Brie's date nights with Dave Franco. If they're not big on milestones, how about date night? Well, truly his dream is a home-cooked meal by me. And then we just watch a movie, says Brie, who is launching a partnership with a meal kit company called HelloFresh. What might Dave chef up for her? Dave does not cook, period, she says with a chuckle. He would say the same thing. The couple love to host friends. I spend so much time traveling for work. When I'm home, the way I like to fill up my cup, especially when I'm feeling nearly depleted, is spending time with friends. But, she says, but the prep gives me anxiety. Her campaign with HelloFresh aims to help solve that. Her personally curated menu was born out of a desire for the comedian ease, which includes meals she actually plans to make the week of the launch. She has hosted some memorable and star-studded dinner parties. Years ago, when I was on Community, I ended up having an important get-together at my house, and Questlove made an appearance. I remember one point looking over the guests and having drinks, and Questlove was like drumming on the coffee table, and I was like, this is a cool party. Her and Franklin's ideal recipe for a night doesn't require any star power, though. She says, we're really such homebodies and the most low-key people you can imagine. And here's another picture of Dave Franco with a shadow of a beard, his arm around a very attractive-looking Alison Brie and long hair down on her shoulders almost to her waist, at the world premiere of Disney and Pixar's Hoppers in Los Angeles on February 23rd. And she says in her downtime, they're really homebodies.
And now we're going to talk books. Arsenio reflects on laughs and life. As Arsenio Hall sits near the stage at the famed The Comedy Store, his thoughts immediately travel back to stand-up legend Richard Pryor. As Hall, who is 70, writes in Arsenio, a memoir, Mentor Pryor, who died back in 2005, ruled the comedy Mecca's main room and took a liking to him as a young comic who is surviving on free samples of Jimmy Dean's sausage from his local Ralph's supermarket. I tell comics, if you haven't learned or stolen something from Richard's stand-up, you're doing it all wrong, he says. He was the master. It was the ultimate honor to have Richard watch you work. Richard watched me open for Chaka Khan at the Universal Amphitheater. I killed it, but I haven't killed since. Now, before exploding into late-night TV with the syndicated The Arsenio Hall Show, for 6 culturally resonant years, the comic crushed it in the 1988's Coming to America as Semi, who was the loyal best friend to Eddie Murphy's Prince Akeem, he says. Hall weighs in on Bill Clinton's sax appeal. There are so many classic moments from the Arsenio Hall show, but none were more consequential than presidential candidate Bill Clinton's saxophone appearance in June of '92. The sunglass-wearing Arkansas governor made headlines playing Heartbreak Hotel with the show's band. You could tell he was no Kenny G, Hall says, but the appearance with his wife Hillary, it's credited as pivotal for Clinton's victory in the '92 election. Hall Hall makes it clear that he invited the Republican candidate, President George H.W. Bush, too. I got a response from the White House, Martin Fitzwater, who said in essence, "Get the blank, blank, blank out of here," Hall says. "I was told that it was Hillary Clinton's idea to do our show, which is a smart political move because the young demo might have turned that election around." Hall writes that Clinton told him on Air Force One years later, "Without your help, I might not have become president." Steven Seagal was packing as an Arsenio guest. Action star Steven Seagal comes across as a memorable guest on the show who arrived by helicopter for Hall's birthday party. They open the door and he comes out going, "Hey, young man, happy birthday," Hall says. Everyone else, of course, took limos. Now, on the show, Hall was surprised to feel a telltale bulge while greeting Seagal with a hug. The above-the-law star, he brought his gun. I dapped him up and I thought, this blankety blank, he's packing. I never got it. What's up with you bringing your gun on the air? Hall played Cupid for Charles Barkley in Madonna. Hall writes that he played Cupid exactly twice during his Arsenio TV run. He helped make a love connection with the show's musical director, Michael Wolff, and guest 30-something actress Polly Draper. They hit it off and they're still together, Hall says of that married couple. Then, Hall also saw sparks fly after bringing pals Madonna and Rosie O'Donnell to watch Charles Barkley play for the Phoenix Suns. In the breathless reporting that followed, Barkley publicly denied dating Madonna before the '93 NBA Finals. Hall is coy, explaining why he refers to the reported pairing as his second Cupid gig. "I introduced them," he said. "I don't know what happened after that," he says. What's interesting is that the Suns didn't win, but Charles's playoff numbers were very good. Hall gets straight up on Paula Abdul. The notoriously private Hall discusses his relationship with former LA Lakers choreographer and singer Paula Abdul in the book. For some fans, it was the Travis and Taylor of the moment. Absolutely magical. Now, Hall clarifies by saying it was two people that everyone knew who took a liking to each other. Hall was chilling in his car, happily listening to a Lakers game while Abdul was in the studio shooting the famed Straight Up video with director David Fincher. She just urged him to step inside, so I come in, and they just happen to have a bomber jacket that fit me, and Abdul says, "You have to be in this," Hall says, "so that's how I ended up in that Straight Up video. She just wanted me to move around. She knew I couldn't dance." Now, Hall describes a light relationship, saying he and Abdul were just hanging out. Hall writes in his memoir that both parties pumped the brakes on the coupling before it got serious, and now they remain friends. "My timing and innate ability to end things before they're finished may be my superpower," he says. Hall wrote his memoir for his son, Arsenio Hall Jr. Hall says he was inspired to write this memoir for his 26-year-old son, Arsenio Sharon Hall Jr., born to former partner Cheryl Bonacci. Hall writes that spending time with his son was a significant reason for leaving the Arsenio Hall show. Hall insists that he quit by letter before the show was canceled back in '94. Now, Hall Jr.'s business ventures include a bookstore in LA's Lement Park. "I thought it'd be cool to have a book and a son with a bookstore," Hall says. "It's full circle." Hall returned as Semi for the 2021 sequel called Coming to America, and then continues to tour comedy clubs, often joining friends and former talk show hosts like Jay Leno and Craig Ferguson on the Kings of Late Night tours. Working the Comedy Store stage, the remarkably youthful Hall says he's horrified and delighted that the joke sets are now being recorded for review. "I was looking at the tape when I got home, and I realized that I'm walking like a 70-year-old, he says, laughing. "I remember when I played the old preacher in Coming to America and trying to practice that walk in the Waldorf Hotel. Now it's how I walk. If we do Coming to America 3, well, I won't even need makeup."
Well, you're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 1:42. After Sobriety Miracle, Pelfrey's intimidating role. Tom Pelfrey, that's spelled Pelphrey, can vividly remember reading his Bible in his childhood home in Howell Township, New Jersey, about 15 miles from the coast. Raised Catholic, the actor who recently received acclaim for his role of a desperate single dad, Robbie Prendergast, on HBO's crime drama Task, made his sacraments and attended religious classes. The lessons didn't always land, but he loved returning home and poring through his red study Bible. I found a kind of solace in that, says Pelfrey, who's 43 years old. Reading that Bible as a young boy was the beginning of how I felt like I was developing a personal relationship with God. When the opportunity arose to voice Jesus in a podcast about his life, the crucifixion and the resurrection, the Emmy-nominated Pelfrey felt an unfamiliar kind of pressure. I was intimidated in a way that I don't often get with work, Pelfrey concedes with a deep, long, low laugh that erupts throughout the interview. I was like, wow, I would love to do that. The next thought was, oh no, I can't do that. Pelfrey says he prayed about taking on the role for the Christ podcast, which is available now and releasing episodes daily. I just want to be of service. Over 4 episodes, The Christ explores the teachings, works, and events leading up to Easter with a powerhouse cast that includes David Oyelowo as Pontius Pilate, Paul Walter Hauser as John the Baptist, and Patricia Heaton as host. The series will be available on the usual podcast platforms and thechristpodcast.com. Pelfrey references his faith in Instagram posts, thanking God for his family with fiancée Kaylee Cuoco, celebrating the December 2025 baptism of their daughter Matilda, who turns 3 this month, and marking 12 years of sobriety in October. By the grace of God, he says. I think it's a miracle, Pelfrey says. I know that in my own personal experience, the sense of that obsession being lifted was a gift. I didn't necessarily deserve it. I didn't do anything to earn it, and it wasn't because of how clever I was or how hard I worked or anything else. I experienced it as a grace. The concept of a grace has become a driving principle in the actor's life. He says, give as you were given. What were you given? Mercy, grace, forgiveness for no reason other than they are a human being, which is really beautiful and really powerful and worth focusing on. When recording The Christ, Pelfrey looked for occasions to add warmth, to add a smile, to add a sense of humor, and add a certain amount of joy to the role of Christ. Conveying the crucifixion and subsequent anguish using only voice provided an opportunity for Pelfrey to hone a new set of skills. That's one of the things that was a great challenge and kind of intimidating about doing this, he said. I'm sitting here right now in a chair talking to you, and that's how I recorded most of this. That was blowing my mind. I'm like, how am I supposed to do that with my voice? Pelfrey hopes audiences find something valuable in the Christ. That in some small way, it can deepen their faith or maybe pique their curiosity about part of their faith, and they want to look into more. I think there's so many ways it can affect people. I just hope it finds everybody where they are and adds a little something.
And now I'm going to take you back to our sports section for my next article. Hyo-Joo Kim outduels Nelly Korda again. The Ford Championship was a scorcher from start to finish. From the unseasonably high triple-digit temps to Lydia Ko's opening 60, and for a second consecutive week, Hyo-Joo Kim / Nelly Korda duel, it was a feast of low scoring. Even the cut line of 5 under at Whirlwind Golf Club's Cattail course outside Phoenix tied for the lowest on tour since 1980, sharing a record set at the 2024 Stanford Portland Classic. Kim, the defending champ at the Ford, entered the final round with a 4-stroke lead over Korda after becoming the first player in LPGA history to card 2 61s in the same tournament, rounds 1 and 3. Her 54-hole 191 total set an LPGA 54-hole scoring record. For a moment on March 29th, it looked like all those records might not lead to the winner's circle after a double bogey on the 8th hole brought Korda to within 1 stroke. The window wasn't open long, though. Back-to-back bogeys from Korda on 9 and 10 gave Kim a 4-stroke lead with 7 to play. I actually wanted to ask Nelly how it feels to win back-to-back, said 30-year-old Kim, who says Korda is her favorite player. Now, Korda has made 3 starts this season, finishing 1, 2, and 2. Kim is the only player she has lost to in 2026. I'm done playing with her, Korda joked after that round. The former number 1 missed a couple of short putts and misfired with some short irons, but finished eagle birdie on the last 2 holes to shoot 67 and then finished 2 strokes back. "I'm going to make mistakes," Korda said after the round to Golf Channel's Tom Abbott. "I'm going to miss a bunch of these putts throughout my entire career, and I just can't get down on myself." Now, golf stats guru Justin Ray pointed out the last time a player won back-to-back on the LPGA with the same player finishing runner-up both weeks was in the year 2001 when Annika Sorenstam beat Se-Ri Pak. The second of those 2 weeks was the Standard Register Ping, where Sorenstam shot 59 in the second round. Now, after a 2025 LPGA season that took 10 months to get a 2-time winner, Kim goes back-to-back in March. Now a 9-time LPGA winner, this marks the first time she has won consecutive events on the LPGA and the first time she has successfully defended a title. A 14-time winner on the KLPGA, 19-year-old Kim burst onto the worldwide stage with a 61 in the opening round of that 2014 Evian Championship, making her the first LPGA title a major. She deferred LPGA membership until the 2015 season. Now, Kim moved up to number 4 in the world, a career best, after her victory at the Fortinet Founders Cup, behind Charlie Hull, who is 3, Korda, who is 2, and Gino Fittipaldi, who is number 1, and then moved up to 3rd on March 30th in the Rolex rankings. She joins Inbee Park as the only player since 1980 to win in their teens, their 20s, and their 30s. On March 26th, Ko became only the 8th player in LPGA history to card a 60. She shot 69 and 68 over the weekend to finish solo 4th. Amateur Esteris Taylor, who won her last 3 junior starts, finished in the share of 29th. Now, Taylor heads next to the Augusta National Women's Amateur, where she finished 2nd last year. Anything else, Alan?
Yeah. We got a little extra time, so we'll head on back to the first section with a column by Michael Hicks. $4 a gallon gas is just the start of what Iran war will cost America. Since the U.S.-Israeli war against Iran began February 28th, crude oil prices have surged more than 50%. Even if oil prices stop rising, however, we should see gasoline prices in the $4 to $4.25 range by early April. And that is the economic cost of this war with Iran so far. It will not be the last. Wars have costs beyond the battlefield. We will need to replace the weapons, ammunition, and equipment destroyed in this war. Thus far, that is tractable, perhaps $25 billion. It seems certain to grow. The larger economic threat is oil. Iran can interdict, if not wholly stop, oil supply flows through the Strait of Hormuz. The world's economic exposure is heavily dependent upon the flow of roughly 1/5 of total oil production through those straits. Significant interruption of that supply will further raise the price of oil. A longer supply shock will ensure that America is in recession, which we might already be, and will push much of the rest of the world's economy into a downturn. A long supply shock, say 6 to 12 months, will almost certainly bring about a global recession along with higher prices. America's war aims are uncertain as the Trump administration officials have offered contradictory goals. Iran's goals are not difficult to discern. The regime seeks to stay in power and reduce any possible threat to itself in the years and decades to come. As the Prussian military theorist Karl von Clausewitz observed, war is continuation of politics by other means. Iran wins this war by making the United States stop fighting. It scores a durable victory by making a war against Iran so painful, though no one attempts to do so for a generation. The least costly and most effective way to accomplish this is to cut off oil shipments until we stop fighting and the world is thrown into economic disorder. That strategy shifts our position from offensive to defensive operations, from setting the location and tempo of battle to reacting to Iran's decisions. Washington and Tehran are engaged in ceasefire talks, and President Donald Trump says Iran will allow 20 cargo ships to transport through the Strait of Hormuz on March 30th. That is yesterday, we shall see. America must decide whether Iranian regime change is worth it. We can still target the Iranian regime and attempt to weaken its ability to block oil shipments. We can support Iranian dissidents and further erode Iran's ability to fire drones and ballistic missiles at our troops and allies, and this work might bring about regime change. We can hope for a different Iranian regime that is sympathetic to enlightenment in ideals of individual sovereignty, freedom of speech and worship, and peace. As in the past, we would wish to help that country rebuild and restore its economy. Any long-term effort to ensure regime change will take an Iranian Marshall Plan. That won't be as popular as the original Marshall Plan that helped rebuild Europe. It will still be as critical to long-term success of this war. If we don't do it, China will. In the long history of war, there are no examples of victory for attacking an army forced into fighting a defensive war and conceding the initiative. The Duke of Wellington, who defeated Napoleon Waterloo, warned that nothing except a battle lost can be half so melancholy as battle won. And this bodes ill for the global economy and for our prospects in this war. Well, it's on to the Lifeline column. They said what? They said what? The Tsar's best quotes. Faith is how I'll stay connected to my mom, and I won't let sadness win. For her, I may not do it as well as her, but I will do it, Savannah Guthrie told a friend and fellow journalist Hoda Kotb on the Today Show, nearly 8 weeks after the apparent abduction of her 80-year-old mother, Nancy Guthrie. The anchor recalled her mom's strength after the death of her father, Charles Guthrie, and remained steadfast in monitoring her mother's faith as her mother's disappearance remains unsolved. Who's celebrating their birthday today? Actor-singer Shirley Jones is 92. Singer-producer Herb Alpert is 91. Former Congressman Barney Frank is 86. Former Senator Pat Leahy is 86. Christopher Walken, actor, is 83. Actor Gabe Kaplan, 81. Actor Rhea Perlman, 78. Guitarist of AC/DC Angus Young is 71. Actor Ewan McGregor is 55. Tech entrepreneur Evan Williams is 54. Actor-comedian Kate Micucci is 46. And actor online personality Lisa Koshy is 30. Here's the horoscopes. Aries, trying to be useful when you're running on empty? The Virgo moon opposing Mars can pressure you to be productive. Taurus, a communal agenda may conflict with your desires today. Feeling obligated to put your energy where the group is? Gemini, prepare for tension between your private and public lives. The Virgo moon testing Mars can pull you in opposite directions. Cancer, waiting for clear answers before you make a move? Release the need to have everything figured out. Leo, financial entanglements may require action today. Attend to money and resource issues. Virgo, irritated with a relationship? The Virgo moon opposing Mars can bring a sense of misalignment. Libra, daily responsibilities pull you forward even when you want to rest, pushing through to meet external demands. Scorpio, making moves toward your creative aspirations. A passion project you're working on may require all of your attention. Sagittarius, pressure to be capable and composed. Putting your best face forward can be challenging when there's frustration within. Capricorn, watch for scattering your energy today. Mental fatigue from information is overload as possible. Aquarius, feeling your financial frustration, you may feel like you're giving more than you're taking. Pisces, a partner's needs may be at odds with your personal agenda. Is irritation or defensiveness your initial response? Well, you've been listening to a reading of USA Today for Tuesday, March 31st of 2026. We read USA Today weekday at noon. For more information, call 821-5555. Your readers today have been
Jody
and Alan Blackburn.
If you or people you know shop at any of the Dash's supermarkets, please save Dash's register tapes for radio reading. Our agency receives $2 for every $100 in Dash's register tapes. Radio reading has raised thousands of dollars so far. Anyone can drop off their Dash's tapes to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, between William and Clinton Streets. Or Dash's tapes can be mailed to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, New York, 14227. Any questions on Dash's tapes for radio reading? Call us at 716-821-5555, and thanks for caring. Coming up next on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have Episode 12 of Buckeye by Patrick Ryan. At 3 o'clock with National Geographic, and at 4 o'clock a re-airing of today's Buffalo News. Stay with us.